I don't remember the sound completely. Shaleinu Sukash Lemecha That's another song. Okay. Huh? Yeah, no, I'm saying that when that's going into another song. Okay. Shalom, shalom, bimraim avu, yase shalom, 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 bimraim avu, yase shalom, yase shalom, aleinu. B'yagad Yisrael ve'imiru Ameinu Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu B'yagad Yisrael ve'imiru Ameinu Shalom, shalom, b'mraim shalom, shalom aleinu. Shalom, shalom aleinu, aleinu v'alkan Yisrael ve'yimiru amen. I did it all right, did it all right, I did, I did, I did, I did, I did, I did, Okay, open. Okay, so actually somebody asked me yesterday, you know the story of Moshe Good Shabbos, that's what we were learning. Good Shabbos, Moshe Good Shabbos, that story, no? Anyway, so it's about this Yid that Reb Shlomo used to call him Reb Moshe Good Shabbos, because he was always saying Good Shabbos. And somebody asked me yesterday about, or after Shalosh Shudas, like, do you know that Reb Shlomo met his son? And I forgot. He tells a story over here that he met his son. That Reb Shlomo actually met his. He was in Antwerp, and the Sid came over to invite him for a Shabbos meal, and it turned out that it was the son of Reb Moshe Good Shabbos. And he made a Meleva Malka together with him, and he asked him, do you know the Nigun of your father? So he says, no, he didn't know the Nigun because he was too young to learn it. So Reb Shlomo taught him the Nigun. And if you go to the bottom of page 69, the last paragraph on 69, we'll continue from there. Okay? So, You see, the Melech Malka Shalti Laser, his name was Laser. It's like the Yiddish nickname for Eliezer. I asked him if he knows his father's nigun, he was too young to remember it. אמרתי לו, לייזר, אתה יודע מה? ברור לי שכל השביתה באנגליה היה רק כדי שיוכל להיות פה בשבת קודש. What happened was is that Reb Shlomo was supposed to be in Manchester, but they were already on the plane, and then there was a strike at the airport in London, and he couldn't get there, so they were going to stop in Zurich. Anyway, so he didn't want to be in Zurich for Shabbos. He said that to come to Belgium. No, hold on. He got to Antwerp. Anyway, so he met the son of Reb Moshe the Shabbos in Antwerp. So he says, so he says, where are we? 4 lines from the bottom. Hakol haya kadei shuchal lavir lacha et hanigun she'abba shelcha hishir b'shvilcha. So obviously I had to be here for Shabbos in Antwerp, even though I didn't plan it, so that I can meet you and teach you your father's nigun. Unfortunately, he didn't have the opportunity to teach it to you. I taught him the tune, but I want you to know that the entire room was filled with tears. Can you imagine how meaningful this was for Lezer? What a marriage it was to give him what his father left for him. So remember that this whole lesson with the story that we learned and so on, what Reb Shlomo was talking about, that we leave things for our children when we're still alive. Remember, he said that, when did my father give me the inheritance of Shabbos? Not after he passed away. He gave me the inheritance of Shabbos while he was alive, right? So, and what was the inheritance of Moshe Levi Shabbos? The inheritance of Moshe Levi Shabbos was that a Jew doesn't give up believing that there's going to come a day that is going to be Kulo Shabbat, that's going to be completely Shabbos. You have enough light, Michal? You want me to open the other lights? Okay, yeah, because the clouds. Right behind you, the one that turn it. Better? Yeah. Okay. So he says, huh?
Can you say it again? What was his inheritance?
His inheritance was that no matter how much evil is out there, we don't live according to the evil, we live according to what we believe in. And there's plenty of it out there today too, unfortunately. So, באותה שבת באנטוורפן התפללתי בבית המדרש.
What does the word mashma
meaningful, like Shema Yisrael. There's another word that's also from that, mishmat, which means discipline or respect, But mashmaut means the meaning of something. Mashma, like it happened to Gemara, my kamashmalan, right? Kamashmalan, right? So he says, באותה שבת באנטוורפן התפללתי בבית המדרש של צ'וטקוב. So that Shabbos I davened in the Beis Medrash of the Cherkover Hasidim. אולי חלקכם יודעים שכולנו נזכה להיות בדרגה כזו, אני ממש משוגע ספרים. He says, maybe some of you know, and we should all marry this. He says, I'm crazy about Sforim. Sometimes I went with Reb Shlomo to a Sforim store. You wouldn't believe how many Sforim he would buy. Every sefer that he had that he didn't have yet, he would just pile up. He would pile up stacks huge stacks, and we would have, like two of us would have to carry it out. Like he tons and tons of Sforim. And once he was with us in Montreal for Shabbos, and like a half an hour before Shabbos, his big thing was to sit down at a nice in the kitchen, a clean tablecloth, with a stack of Sforim, and he'd go through them. Like, he was a speed reader, and he would just like, okay, next one. He devoured them. So he says, Baruch Hashem, yesh li harbe sfarim, thank God I have a lot of Sforim, v'chol makom shani mistavev, ani tamid mistakel. Everywhere I go, I'm always looking, v'lai yesh sfarim shadayin ein li, maybe there's some books that I don't have yet. Istavavti v'sham bebeit midrash. Hayu sham meyot sfarim. I'm looking through the books in the Beis Medrash. There were hundreds of sfarim. Pitom raiti sefer she'at pam lo raiti. And suddenly I saw a sefer that I never saw. אני בטוח שחלקכם למדנים מאוד גדולים, I'm sure that some of you are big scholars, אז בטח ידוע לכם שיש חלק אחד בתלמוד סדר טהרות, שמעט מאוד אנשים בקיאים בו. One of the 6 orders of the Mishnah is called Taharot, and there are very few people who really know it. Because it's all about Tumah and Tahara, it's very complicated stuff, and because it's not that relevant on a day-to-day basis, because unfortunately we're all Tamei, until the next Beis Hamikdash. Shibona b'mehera b'yameinu. So הסתכלתי בספר, I looked into the book, וראיתי שהמחבר שואל בו שאלה אחת על דיני טהרות. I saw that the author is he raises a question. ועונה 126 תשובות, and he wrote 126 answers to the question. That's the whole sefer. One question with 126 answers. זה לא יאומן, unbelievable. והם לא רק תשובות קטנות, and they're not short answers, אלא שכל תשובה הייתה ממש מערכה בפני עצמה. Each answer was like a whole presentation. 126 מערכות על דיני טהרות. 126 theses on the laws of טהרה. היהודי בטח היה גאון וגדול עצום, the author surely must have been an amazing scholar, אבל כשהסתכלתי על שם המחבר, when I looked at the name of the author, ראיתי שאפילו לא שמעתי עליו, I saw that I never heard about him. באותו זמן שעיינתי בספר, so while I'm looking in the ספר, מישהו ניגש אליי ואמר לי, somebody came up to me and said to me, אתה רואה את הספר הזה? You see this book? אני הדפסתי אותו. I printed it. ודודי הקדוש חיבר אותו, my holy uncle is the one who authored it. הדוד שלי אפילו לא היה רב, my uncle wasn't even a rabbi. הוא היה בין העשירים הגדולים בקרקוב. He was one of the richest Jews in Krakow. יהודי חסיד אמיתי, יהודי עמוק. He was a real chassid, he was a very deep man. הוא היה עשיר מופלג, millionaire, he was very, very rich. וביתו היה פתוח לרבים, his house was wide open for everybody, לאכילה, שינה, מגורים. People could come there and eat and sleep and even stay over, יומם ולילה, day and night. והאמת היא שהוא רק עבד שעתיים ביום, and the truth is he worked only 2 hours a day, ושאר היום הוא עסק בלימוד תורה. The rest of the day he was studying Torah. The author of the book.
Right. What's the book?
He didn't say the name of it, no. Anyway, I heard that there's a Yid in London who also, like a very wealthy man, and he has an open door, and all kinds of schleppers come and they eat there, and he sits there very modestly amongst them, and he eats together with them. So the story is that one day some guy is sitting next to him, and he says, how long can you eat here before they throw you out? So he says he didn't know that he was talking to the balabos, to the owner, to the master of the house. So he says, well, I've been eating here for 20 years and I haven't been thrown out yet. So, and there are people like that, like I have a relative in Montreal. Every day when he comes home from work, his door is open, and people come and he writes checks and checks and checks for tzedakah day after day. And he welcomes everybody with a beautiful, friendly smile and handshake. Mamish giving tzedakah the whole time. It's for a lot of people, being wealthy is a test, just like for poor people, being poor is a test, Like the test is, so now that you've got it, what are you going to do with it, And how are you going to, how are you, when you're going to give tzedakah, how are you going to, what kind of an attitude? So page 71, this is the story that I wanted to share with you. Take these stories, take them with you. הסיפור של משה לגד Shabbos הוא סיפור בשביל כל יהודי. The story of Moshe לגד Shabbos is for every Jew. And page 71. וגם הסיפור הזה הוא סיפור על הצוואה האחרונה של אחד מששת המיליונים, וכך הוא התחיל לספר לי. And this story is a story about the last will and testimony of one of the 6 million. And this is the story that he told me. במשפחה של אבא שלי היו 8 אחים. My father's family, there were 8 brothers, כולל דודי, including my uncle. לקראת סוף המלחמה, and towards the end of the war, רק אני ודודי נותרו בחיים, נותרנו בחיים, only I and my uncle were left alive. אף אחד לא שרד, the rest of them didn't survive. לילה אחד, one night, and this is in Auschwitz, והיה לעת ערב יהי אור, and he quotes a verse over here, and he says, there will come a time in the evening when there will be light. I'm talking about Mashiach times, right? And where's that verse? Zechariah. And פגשתי את דודי באחד מצחיפי אושוויץ, I met my uncle in one of the barracks of Auschwitz. כמה שמחנו למצוא אחד את השני, we were so happy to find one another. ומאז היינו יחד כמה חודשים, and then we were together for a few months. ואז לילה אחד, and then one night, זה היה כמו יום הכיפורים ותשעה באב וליל הסדר ביחד. It was like Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av, and Seder night all at once. כשהכל טוב ועצוב כאחד, when everything is good and sad at the same time. דודי העיר אותי באמצע הלילה, my uncle woke me up in the middle of the night. וכך הוא אמר לי, and this is what he said to me. אתה היחיד ששרד מכל המשפחה. You're the last survivor of the entire family. ואני יודע שמחר יקראו בשמי לעלות לגנזי מרומים. I know that tomorrow I'm going to be called to ascend to heaven. גוואלד, שכולנו נחיה עד 120 שנה, עד 120, we should all be blessed to live to 120. מכיוון שאתה האחרון, and since you're the last member of my family, הריני מוסר לך בזה את הצוואה האחרונה שלי, so I'm giving you my last will. זהו לא הזמן לגאווה, it's not time for being haughty. אז תאמין לי שאני מספר לך אמת, believe me, I'm telling you the truth. דע לך, know, שאני יודע כל התלמוד עם רש"י ותוספות בעל פה. I know the entire Talmud with Rashi's commentary and Tosfos's commentary by heart. אני כאן באושוויץ כבר 4 שנים, I'm here already 4 years in Auschwitz. אך לא פסקתי מללמוד אפילו רגע אחד. But I didn't stop learning even for one moment. כבר הספקתי לסיים ש"ס כמה פעמים. I've managed to finish Shas a few times here in Auschwitz. ואני עוד לומד יומם ולילה, and I'm still learning day and night. היום אני מתחיל מסכת מועד קטן. Today I'm beginning the מסכת מועד קטן. ואני יודע שכאשר ידחפו אותי מחר לתאי הגזים, and I know that tomorrow when they're going to push me into the gas chamber, אני אהיה באמצע דף זין. I'm going to be in the middle of page 7. וזאת הצוואה האחרונה שלי, this is my last will. שאם הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותך ותצליח לשרוד, that if God is going to bless you and you will manage to survive, אני מתחנן בפניך, I'm begging you, שתסיים את המסכת בשבילי. I'm begging you that you should finish this מסכת for me. That's it. That's the end of the story. So Reb Shlomo continues, right? Now, those of you who've never heard the recording of Nachmu Ami, it's really worth. If you've heard it, I'm sure. There's a tape that was produced. It's called Nachmu Ami, and the song it's printed over here on page 72. Comfort, comfort my people. Yomar Elokechem says, your God. Dabru alei Yerushalayim v'kiru eleha, speak to the heart of Yerushalayim and call after her. So he probably stopped and started singing that song at this point. That's why there's a break. Anyway, if you can get your hands on that recording, it's much of it is on YouTube.
And
the song, but also the stories. The story that we just read is there as well on YouTube, on that recording. But it's really worth it. It's a double cassette, and it's really, especially now during the 3 weeks, like it's really amazing what he, like, you know, it gives you a lot of chizuk, it gives you a lot of strength to go through whatever we're going through. So, תנו לי את הזכות להעביר לכם עוד צוואה אחת מ6 המיליונים. Please allow me to have the merit to tell you one more will of the 6 million. זה גדול ונשגב. It's an awesome story. אולי חלקכם יודעים שדודי הקדוש רבי יוסף קרלבך, some of you might know that my holy uncle, Rabbi Joseph Karlebach, Hashem Yinkom Damo, Hashem should avenge his blood, היה הרב הראשי האחרון בגרמניה. He was the last chief rabbi of Germany. היו לו 13 דרכונים ממדינות שונות כדי לצאת מגרמניה. He had 13 passports from different countries that he could have left Germany. He had the opportunity to escape. הוא אמר, but he said, שכל עוד יישאר יהודי אחד בגרמניה, he said, as long as there's one Jew left in Germany, הוא לא מוכן לעזוב, he's not prepared to leave. ובאופן ניסי, שממש לא יאומן, and miraculously, unbelievably so, נתנו לו שעה אחת בשבוע ברדיו הגרמני להעביר דברים לעם היהודי. He had a radio show 1 hour a week in Germany where he would, for the Jewish people, זה לא יאומן. Unbelievable. בכל יום ראשון, every Sunday, במשך שעה, for an hour, הוא ממש עודד את אחינו בני ישראל ונתן להם כוח. He kept on encouraging our brothers and giving them energy. אני יודע שאשתו התחננה בפניו, I know that his wife begged him, תרחם על עצמך, have compassion on yourself, יש לך 9 ילדים, you have 9 children. אבל בכל יום ראשון הוא אמר ליהודים, every Sunday, and he would say to the Jews, כי לא יטוש השם, God will not forsake you. זה לא לנצח, the evil that we're facing now is not going to be forever. תחזיקו מעמד, hold out. אני יודע שהוא ממש נתן עידוד וחיזוק למאות יהודים לא להתאבד. I know that he gave hundreds of Jews the strength not to commit suicide. ואיכשהו הייתה לו נשיאת חן נשגבה. Somehow he had a lot of charm, very high charm. By the way, we're on page 72. You see where we are, Dvorah? Yeah. And כאשר היו מצדיעים לו, כאשר הוא היה הולך ברחוב, people would salute him, would greet him when he would be walking in the street, זה לא יאומן. אבל כבר הגיע שנת 1944, it was already 1944, והם כבר מפסידים במלחמה, and the Germans were already losing the war. יום אחד הם באו לדודי עם פיסת נייר, one day they came to my uncle with a piece of paper, מסודרים כרגיל, organized as always, ואמרו לו, אנו מצווים עליך שתכתוב לנו שמות של 3 מהיהודים שמתחבאים. We're ordering you to write down the names of 3 Jews that are hiding. הוא אמר להם, he said, what? מה? שאני, רבה של העיר, the rabbi of the city, יכתוב לכם שמות של יהודים, I should divulge names of Jews to you? הם אמרו לו, he said to him, זה צו, it's a command. תחזיר לנו את זה מחר ב-9 בבוקר, you have to bring it to us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. למחרת בבוקר הם חזרו ב-9, they came back at 9 o'clock the next morning, וגוואלד על אלה אני בוכייה, I'm crying over these. הוא רשם בפתק את שמו ושם אשתו ואת שמות 9 ילדיו. He gave them a piece of paper with his name, his wife's name, and the names of his children. תדעו, you should know, page 73, שמי שעצר אותו ודחף אותו לרכבת, that the person who arrested him and pushed him into the train, לפני שהדלתות נסגרו, before the doors closed, אמר לדודי, he said to my uncle, אתה יודע כמה יהודים כבר דחפתי בתוך רכבות? Do you know how many Jews I've pushed into these trains, into these cattle cars? לפחות כמה אלפים, at least a few thousand. ואני אף פעם לא בוכה כאשר אני דוחף ייחודי לתוך הרכבת. I never cry when I push a Jew into the train. אך איתך, but with you, אני לא יכול להתאפק מלבכות. I can't hold myself back from crying. וסיפרתי את זה לכמה מכם, I've told this story to a number of you. תעבירו את הסיפור הזה הלאה לדורות הבאים. Please continue telling the story in future generations. לפני כ5 או 6 שנים הופעתי בסטוקהולם וקיבלתי פתק באמצע ההופעה. But 5 or 6 years ago I had a show in Stockholm and I got a note in the middle of the show שמישהו חייב לדבר איתי לאחר ההופעה, that somebody was requesting that he must talk with me after the show. אחרי ההופעה הוא ניגש אליי ואמר לי, after the concert, he came to me and he said, אני כבר מחכה לפגוש אותך מספר שנים, I've been waiting years to meet you. אני הייתי עם הדוד שלך יחד במחנה ההשמדה אוריגה. I was with your uncle in the death camp of Origa. I don't know which one that was. כשהדוד שלך הגיע, when your uncle arrived, הוא פתאום רומם את רוחם של כל היהודים במחנה. He lifted up the spirit of all the Jews in the camp. הוא הרים אותנו מעלה מעלה. He lifted us up higher and higher. פתאום כאשר בעטו בנו, suddenly, when they kicked us, כשהיכו וקיללו אותנו, when they cursed us, when they hit us, זה כבר לא הפריע לנו. It didn't bother us anymore. הוא נתן לנו כל כך הרבה כוח פנימי, he gave us so much inner strength, כל כך הרבה גאווה, he gave us so much pride. ראיתי במו עיניי, I saw with my own eyes, איך פעם אחת היכו יהודי אחד, how they were beating a Jew, ועבר לידו עוד יהודי ואמר לו, and another Jew passed by and he said, אל תשכח את מה שהרב קרליבך אמר לך. And he said to him, don't forget what Rav Karlebach told you. וממש התרומם מעל ומעבר לעולם הזה. And the Yid got up and beyond this world. אמנם, however, אחרי שהדוד שלך הלך, שלך היה שם כמה חודשים, after your uncle was there for a few months, הם ראו שהוא מעודד יותר מדי את רוחם של היהודים. שם, so the Germans saw that he's lifting everybody's spirits more than they were interested in. ביום אחד לקחו אותו, so one day they came and they took him away, גוואלד. Da'alecha, I want you to know, Shahadot HaKadosh Shecha, that your holy uncle, Hayam Ma'avir Lanu Shiyur B'Leil Shabbat, he would give us a Torah lesson on Friday nights. Muchar B'Layla, Acharei Shayinu Mesayimim Et Avodat HaKfiyah Shelem, after we finished the forced labor. L'tzarenu, much to our distress, HaTorot Ha'ela Lo Reshumot Lanu B'Olam Hazeh, whatever he taught there, what never got written down in this world. But I'm sure that whatever he taught was written down in letters of fire in heaven. I would very much want to have that sefer in my hands. This is what my uncle told them on the Friday night of Shabbos Nachmu. Shabbos Nachmu is the Shabbos after Tisha B'Av, right? And we call it Shabbos Nachmu because the Haftorah, right now in the 3 weeks we're reading 3 Haftorah portions that are known as Shlosha de Pagunuta, 3 portions from the prophet about the retribution that was going to be coming down on us. And then the 7 Shabbatot after Tisha B'Av are called Shiva de Nechamta, the 7 prophetic portions of comfort. So the first one is Nachmu Ami, is from is chapter 40 of Isaiah. So he says, this Yid is telling Reb Shlomo, this is what he told us that Friday night. Yehudim Yikarim, Du Lachem Shacharei Shekol Zeh Yigamer. He said to us, my precious Jews, know that after all this will be over. And I'm blessing everybody that we shall also succeed in surviving. There's going to be a whole new understanding of the Torah. Every word of Torah is going to have a much deeper meaning. A truly deeper meaning. Until now we understood that when the prophet said, comfort my people, who hitkaven shakadosh baruch hu amar b'navi, what he had in mind was that God said to the prophet, Lech la'ami Yisrael v'tenachem et ami, go to my people Israel and comfort them, comfort my people. Aval kasher kol ze yistayem, but when all this is going to be over, yeh pshat chadash legamri, there's going to be a whole new meaning. Katuv nachmu ami, it says, comfort my people. Hakadosh baruch hu yitchanein b'fnei kol Yehudi. God is going to beg every Jew. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitchanein mikol echad mimenu. God is begging every one of us, Ana tenachamu oti, please comfort me. You hear that? That God is going to be saying to us, please comfort me. Now if you spend a few minutes thinking about that, it'll blow your mind. And remember, the opening title of this piece that we're learning was a quote from the prophet, Imo Anochi B'Tzara, right? I'm with him in his seat at the top of the page, right? I'm with him in his suffering. Hashem is with us in our suffering, right? And it's hard for us to understand that. I mean, we're always within the oneness and the unity of God. Okay? God is one beyond everything, and God is one within this world of differentiation and seeming disunity. From our perspective, it's almost impossible to understand. But what you could understand is the following. How in the world is it possible for a husband and wife to become as one? How in the world is it possible for you and a really good friend or a brother and a sister to really be as one? You're two separate people. So how could 1 plus 1 equal 1? Right? And that's if you daven Nusach Sfard on Friday night, right? So do you daven Sfard or Ashkenaz? So, but if you daven Nusach Sfard on Friday night, right before Mariv, there's a passage from the Zohar, and so on. It speaks about the secret of Shabbos. And once Reb Shlomo explained that entire passage by saying that during the week 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. But on Shabbos, 1 plus 1 is equal to 1. Meaning to say that there has to be, right, you have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, right? There has to be, the only way that thesis and antithesis can be brought together and brought to a point of synthesis means that there has to be a higher order in which the two seemingly opposite ideas can actually come together and be one, but not one in the sense that one wipes out the other one. Okay? And that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They think that, oh, you and I we're like one, but why are we like one? Because you've crushed me and you've denied my identity and you've made me be what you want me to be, and that's why you say that we're one. That's not one. That's not 1 plus 1 is equal to 1. That's 1 minus 1. Okay? And that's what people do a lot of times. It's like, they don't respect the other person and they don't let the other person be. There's a statement in the Talmud that says, כשם שאין פרצופיהם של אלו דומות זו לזו, just like everybody has their own unique face, you have your features. We all have eyes, we all have a nose, we all have ears and a mouth, etc., etc. And yet, every one of us has a unique face, right? That's one of the things that it says in the Gemara. That it says it says "Ve'ein tzur ke'Elokeinu." In the scriptures, it says there's no rock like our God. There's no one as strong as God. So the Gemara says, "Al tikrei tzur." Don't read only tzur, which means a flintstone or a hard rock. Ela sayar. Read it also as an artist. There's no artist like God. In what sense? An artist makes an image, makes a mold. And like, for example, let's say you're minting coins, right? And every coin that you make out of that mold is going to be exactly the same. And here God made a mold for human beings, and no two human beings are exactly alike. Right? That's incredible. It's incredible. Okay? So the Gemara says, "Kashem she'ein partzufeim demot zo lezo, kach ein deotehem demot zo lezo." Just like everybody has their own face, everybody has their own mind. Everybody has their own opinion.
Everybody had their own way.
And what did they say? 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And then somebody's supposed to say, "But how could that be?" And you're supposed to say, "Yeah, you're also right." Right? Okay? So everybody has their own Yeshua, everybody has their own opinion, and so on. So once I heard a teaching that said like this, just like you appreciate the fact that you have your own unique face and that the other 7 billion people on the planet don't look like you, appreciate that you have your opinion and that the other 7 billion people have a different opinion as well. Right? Everybody wants to have their own physical features, right? But they want everybody else to agree with them, whatever they say, whatever they think. They want the whole world to agree with. We want everyone to agree with us, right? So the same way that you appreciate that you have your unique features, appreciate that everybody else has their unique features as well. So what's being said over here is like this: is that what is the meaning of, somebody's going to remind me by even brought that up, right? Anybody? Huh? Okay, because we're talking about imo anochi b'tzara, right? God is with us in our distress, right? And it's very hard for us to wrap our minds around that. Okay? It's hard for us to understand that how we're within the unity of God, and that there's no change in God. Right? There's no change in God from before creation and after creation. It's not like there's something that God knows today that he didn't know yesterday. Whereas for us, knowledge is always something from the outside that we acquire. Right? God knows everything by knowing himself. Okay. So these are things that are difficult to understand. So the direction I was going was, but you do understand that there has to be some higher realm of reality that can bring the thesis and the synthesis, the antithesis, and bring it together so that there could be a synthesis. That we understand, right? You do understand that there is a possibility for you to really be in love with your soulmate so much that the two of you become like one. You know, there's a street nearby over here named after Reb Aryeh Levine. One of the stories about him is that when he went to the doctor one day with his wife, and the doctor said, "What's wrong?" And he says, "My wife's foot is hurting us." There are people who actually physically feel the pain of another person. The Heilige Vishnu, the Holy Vishnu Rebbe said, if you don't feel the pain of a woman in labor in a radius of 300 kilometers, then you're not a Rebbe. Unbelievable. Okay. So there are people who literally, when somebody else is hurting, they physically feel it, even if they weren't told about it. Okay? How could that be? How is it possible? It's possible because there's a level of reality where the unity is so real that you can actually experience that.
That's the rationale behind it.
Yes, it's definitely.
Just like I can feel my pain, I can feel someone else.
Yes, definitely. There's that level for sure. Okay. So since we're within the unity of God, and God says, "I'm with you in your distress." It's a verse in Tehillim. So what Reb Shlomo's uncle was saying was, "Nachmu, nachmu ami," right? Bless you. He's saying, I too need to be comforted. Now, of course, we're talking in human language, right? Okay, and everything that we have no choice but to talk in human language. You can't talk any other language, right? You can't think in any other way. So all the terminology in the Torah about the way God relates to us is obviously in human language, and we have to understand what does it mean to say, and we have to understand that you can't quite give it this, you have to be careful not to give it the same definition as you do in relation to the worldly matters. For example, Hashem Echad, God is one, You cannot define the oneness of God in the same way that this is one plate in my hand, because this is one because it's got limitations. It's a limited thing, so therefore you can call it one. But if you would never see the beginning or the end of this, you wouldn't know if this is one or not. Right? So like the Rambam says that really when we say anything about Hashem, what we're sort of the most accurate thing that we could say is that God is one means we say that He's not two. So even though we can't quite understand it accurately, but we can understand something about it. We can understand one and not two, right? We could understand. Like when the Kotzker Rebbe was a little child, somebody came over to him. He says, "I'll give you a ruble if you show me where God is, or tell me where God is." And as a child, he answered him back right away, and he says, "I'll give you two if you could tell me where He's not." Okay? You understand? So what I'm getting at is, if you're looking for the proof of the oneness of God, one answer is the fact that you could be one with another person. That is proof that God is one. Because if not for the oneness of Hashem, you would not be able to do this. Okay? But 1 + 1 = 1 doesn't mean that you are no longer you and that the other person is no longer the other person. You are you, and the other person is the other person. And it's the combination of the two of you that creates another one. Okay? And that other one couldn't be created if not for your presence and if not for the presence of the other person. Okay? Now, all this was just trying to understand, what does it mean God is one with us in our distress? Well, if it's hurting us so much and it's hurting you so much, then why are you allowing it to go on? I don't have an answer to that question. Did you see what Shendel wrote today? He said, yes, that's your question, right? But God, what's going on? Why are we facing all this evil again? And is God in distress over what's going on, according to what we believe, according to the way our prophets have taught us? Yes. Imo anochi b'tzara, I'm with him in his suffering. And ultimately, when Hashem says to the Navi, Nachmu Ami, God is going to say to us, comfort me as well. Now remember, this was said in a death camp in Germany, on a Friday night on Shabbos Nachmu. So, I don't know how you understand it, but do you want to say something? No? You did want to say something, but you changed your mind.
No, I started speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
That basically, we're in a relationship with Hashem. And, recently there was a conference in Tel Aviv, Children of Survivors, the second generation. And there was a professor there from YU, and himself a survivor, a child of survivors. And somebody got up and asked him, after the Holocaust, you still believe in God? And he says, I can be angry at God, but it doesn't mean I can be angry at him, but God is still God. I still have a relationship with him. In other words, the thing is that we have a relationship. And I don't know if some of you heard this, but one day I was sitting in a time in my life when I was not on very good terms with the Rebbeinu Shalom. I was just sitting and writing, and I wrote the word, and I was feeling very much alone. So I wrote the word alone on a piece of paper. And then I was just doodling, so I wrote A-L-O-N-E, alone. Then I wrote A space L-O-N-E, alone. Then I wrote A-L space O-N-E, all one, right? And it struck me that maybe I'm feeling so alone because maybe I was making God feel alone in our relationship. Right? Sometimes a person turns his back on God, and when we feel alone, maybe Hashem is sort of like saying, "You're not the only one that's feeling alone. I'm feeling alone too." Okay.
That's part to believe because when I'm trying to understand that, I'm thinking that God is all powerful.
Right.
So He doesn't really need
So
anything.
that true. And you know what we eat for breakfast? We have a cereal called Paradox. We live with paradox. Understand? You're right. It's hard to understand. And we accept that there are many, many paradoxes. So if anybody wants to make a business and make a breakfast cereal that's both healthy and tasty and call it Paradox, you'll owe 2% of the profits to the yeshiva, okay? But I give you the rights to produce it, okay? It's a paradox. And the only thing that you could do with a paradox is to live with it. Because on the rational plane, you cannot resolve it, because if you can resolve it, then it's not a paradox anymore. Now, how many paradoxes do you want to destroy? Eat your breakfast, please. You know, but this is something to understand, that we're here. We have a mission. We have a purpose in this world, and we live in a world where, throughout history, we see a history where evil keeps on showing up, not just vis-a-vis the Jewish people, but all over the world. Okay? The funny thing is that the world is always paying attention to what's happening here. Right? And just one example, I don't hear anybody screaming about what's going on in Syria. Huh?
Doesn't make any sense.
Right? So why is everybody paying attention to what's going on here? Right? You know, when the Chinese killed 3,000 people in one day in Tiananmen Square, you know where it was reported in the New York Times? When it was first reported? It was first reported on page 33. In one day they killed 3,000 people or over, and it didn't even make the front page.
If you build a house, it's on the front page.
Right? Okay. So to me, the deeper question is not why is not why is that. The deeper question is, what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that reality? Because it's a reality. It's a reality. And the reality is that one of the realities of our history is that every time we try to be kechol hagoyim, like all the other nations turn around and they say, no, you are not like everybody else. Did somebody get the door, please? Oh, no, actually, Sifi. Shouldn't have said again. We're not like the other nations. The world turns around and says, "No, you're not." And the fact that you see it, you see that the world just doesn't accept it. We're like everybody else. And somebody did a simple study. I think it was 1967 or whatever it is. He took the 50 top newspapers of the world, and he did a simple thing. He counted up over the previous 50 years which country was on the front page more than any other country across the world. Israel. Over 50, in a period of over 50 years, right? Why is everybody paying attention to us? I'm sure that you have a lot of things to say about that yourself, okay? But basically, it's about the reality that we have a special purpose in this world, and the world is not wanting us to not be Jewish. The world is wanting us to be exactly that. And if we pretend that we're like everybody else, the world says, "No, you're not." Okay. So if we feel alone, and Hashem is feeling alone too, and Hashem is waiting for us to invite His presence into our daily lives. Okay? So, if we feel that we need to be comforted, right? This is what Rabbi Yosef Karlebach was saying. Hashem, so to speak, if we could speak this way, is saying, comfort me too. For what? For all the suffering that you went through, comfort me as well. For all the times that we may have made him feel alone. Right? So, but the important point is, or the important point of what we're learning in this lesson is, we don't give up. We don't give up. We keep on trying. And we don't give up. And like that's both the story of Moshe Reb Shlomo and the story of that Yid who tells his nephew, "I'm not managing to finish this book of Talmud. Promise me that you will continue and you will complete it." And then when Reb Shlomo tells the story on the recording, he says to all of us, we should be blessed to continue to finish to learn all the books that the 6 million didn't manage to finish. So he tells the story there on that recording as well about this Yid who survived the war. And he used to be a chassid, and he was like 15 years old when the Nazis came in. And he had a little sister who was a beautiful girl. And he came home from yeshiva one day, and he sees the family is like totally distraught, and he says, "What's going on?" And they'd taken away his sister. She was a beautiful girl, and no need to describe anything for her. And he says he swore that he's never going to open up a sefer again. And he said he told the story to Reb Shlomo. And he says Yom Kippur he makes a feast. He just like, it's not like he stopped believing in God. He's like, God, I'm going to do everything that you don't want me to do. And he was living here in Israel, and one night, it's a hot summer night, he's living in Beersheba, he goes out for a walk, it's after midnight, and he's walking by an apartment, and the window is open, and unbelievable, there's a Yid sitting inside, and he's learning. And he's learning exactly the Tosfos that he had stopped at. And he had stopped, like, that was that day he was studying that Tosfos. And here he is, he hears a Yid sitting and learning this very passage that he'd been studying. And he says he doesn't know what happened to him, but he went and he knocked on the door. The guy opened the door, and he said, "Come in," and he gave him the Gemara, and he sat down, and he continued learning the Tosfos after years and years and years. Right? So sometimes we get so angry and we just turn away and we feel alone, and we don't understand, and we're angry. But the truth is, we're never really alone. And Reb Nachman says, no matter how difficult a situation the person may find themselves in, if you ask sincerely, Aye Mikoim Kvoide, where is your glory, God, in this situation that I find myself in? God's answer is, Kvodo Malei Olam, His glory fills all space, fills the world. And if the question is asked sincerely, you're going to be answered very, very quickly. Anyway, so we should hear good news. There should be peace, and if we need to, really work hard to take care of ourselves now, then that's what we have to do. And Bezrat Hashem, the world should be blessed, to be honest. Yeah. And we should see the Golda Shlema quickly in our days. We should see the Golda Shlema quickly in our days, B'meher B'yameinu. Okay, B'simcha.
Yeah.
It has to be B'simcha.
Yesterday I was talking to somebody that is really involved in what's going on in the Hamas. And then we're talking how everything started, and then he said it was good in a way, the bad thing that happened. Not the bad things are good, but the bad thing that happened were good because eventually it took us to start solving a bigger problem, the Gaza issue. So I said yes.
Which issue?
The Gaza situation. The Gaza. Yeah. So I said yes, but it wouldn't have been better to have accepted the peace treaty, the ceasefire that they were proposing, because Gaza didn't accept it. That's why we're there.
Right.
So I was kind of upset because I was not accepted, so peace was there. He's like, no, it was actually a blessing because they didn't accept it. We went in, and now we discovered a lot of things that were even more risky.
Even more dangerous, yeah.
So when he said that, I'm thinking, I really thought about this concept that we're talking. Sometimes when bad thing happens, we really think that they're bad.
Yeah, well, that's another. In other words, another aspect of our faith is to trust that everything that Hashem does is for the good. Is good, is for the good, and so on.
Even though I feel like I'm new here, so I feel very stressed out about everything that's happening, I want to learn to really believe that what's happening is good. I mean, even though there's a lot of pain also. So.
And sometimes you just have to say, Hashem, it's hard for me to see it. Please show it to me. Anyway, yes.
Gamzu Latova.
Gamzu Latova. Yeah. Nachum Ish Gamzu. There was a rabbi in the time of the Talmud. His name was Nachum, and he became known as Nachum Ish Gamzu because he always said Gamzu Latova. And Rabbi Akiva always used to say, Kol ma David ma'u letav David. Everything that God is doing is for the good. So, we should be blessed to see the good quickly. And but by the way, I saw a very interesting thing yesterday that the one of the Israeli papers, the reporter from that's in Gaza, was reporting about how the Arab papers are talking about how we're doing these terrible things, and this reporter who's an Arab says he got information from one of his informers who was in the hospital where the Arab wounded were being brought to, and he says that the women were running around screaming that Hamas is getting them killed and Hamas is getting their children killed. So some people are beginning to realize, that they're being used. Anyway, I don't have answers, and all I'm trying to say is that let's stop pretending that we're like everybody else, and let's just really be who we really are supposed to be. Yeah, and it has to be b'simcha. Can you believe it? There's another paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joy